So it is my distinct pleasure today to introduce you to Alan Crawford. Alan and his wife Susan Crawford founded Plankton Art Company in 1996. They work independently in their own distinct styles, but they occasionally team up on larger projects. They share background in biology and conservation. Their shared background in biology and conservation has enabled them to work with many prestigious science and education-based institutions. Their most notable joint project to date is their set of identification key illustrations for the American Museum of Natural History in New York City. The 400 illustrations of corals, invertebrates, crustaceans, fish, and mammals have been on permanent display in the famous Milstein Hall of Ocean Life for over 20 years. A lifelong naturalist, Alan also serves as a trail steward for the New Jersey Park Service. And I often spend Tuesdays with him doing trail maintenance for the Outdoor Club of South Jersey. Alan wrote, illustrated, and designed The Affected Provincial's Companion, an odd collection of satirical charts and essays which was optioned for film 4 times by Johnny Depp's production company. His second book, Whitman Illustrated Songs of Myself, in 2014, is an illustrated edition of Walt Whitman's epic poem. And his most recent book, A Wild Promise, is a celebration of the Endangered Species Act. It contains over 100 illustrations. The introduction was written by noted conservationist and writer Terry Tempest Williams. The book has won multiple awards, including the 3x3 International Illustration Show's Gold Cube Award. Please join me in welcoming Alan Crawford.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you all for coming today, and big thanks to the Philadelphia Ethical Society for having me here. Hopefully I don't make too much of a dog's breakfast of this, so let me just get this scrolling. Let's see if I get the command right. Hang on. There we go. Yeah, okay, very good. Let me get my glasses on too. This is getting more difficult. I have to get a better prescription. Yeah, I apologize in advance if the delivery comes off as stiff, but there's a lot to cover, so I wanted to make sure that I got as much in, given the short allotment of time that I have. So I usually do these things off the cuff and extemporize, but I wanted to make sure that I got as much info to you as I possibly could. So A Wild Promise goes deeper with me than just the 3 years I spent working on it. In some ways, it took me a lifetime to make this book. Many versions of this book have been floating around in my head for as long as I can remember. Making this book was a devotional project, much like an illuminated manuscript. Its pages and hand-rendered type have more in common with icons than they do likenesses. At the risk of sounding grandiose, I imagine A Wild Promise as a tribute to the living world and all of its wild strangeness, unfathomable beauty, and nameless wonder. I'm a graphic artist, so my artwork is made to be reproduced. A Wild Promise became possible because of the popular drawing app Procreate. A lot of you probably have heard of it. I was amazed by how dramatically Procreate's intuitive, direct interface sped up my drawing process. Time is always limited when you're drawing for a living. It's a business after all. But Procreate put this time-consuming project within my reach. This should have taken me a decade. It only took me 3. So it's a really powerful production tool. For years, my publisher, Tin House in Oregon, was kind enough to keep an open door for me. So in early 2020, just before COVID hit, I sent Tin House some prints of the artwork I'd been making on Procreate and proposed an illustrated book on extinct species. During the phone meeting with Tin House, I was told by the editors that the 50th anniversary of the Endangered Species Act was coming up in late 2023. This immediately became the obvious direction of the book. Its final title, A Wild Promise, was also decided during that same initial meeting. The December 28th before this one in 2023 marked the 50th anniversary of the Endangered Species Act's ratification. With over 100 full-color illustrations, A Wild Promise not only commemorates this landmark act, but celebrates its many successes. This book not only features the Endangered Species Act's triumphs, like the bald eagle and the American alligator, A Wild Promise also features newly listed species. Most important, it also features lesser-known species currently poised on the brink of extinction, like the Texas blind salamander, the devil's hole pupfish, and the Tulatoma snail, all of which would have almost surely perished were it not for the ESA. The entire population of a few of the species in this book live in a single location no larger than a rug. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Online Database was an invaluable research for compiling a final list of species to include in the book. Hundreds of data points, names, binomials, range, listing status, population counts, deaccession dates, all of that needed to be collected, fact-checked, and edited as I charged from one page to the next. The average turnaround for each page was about 3 days, starting with initial research, then sketching out the type and image for the layout, and then drawing the final artwork on the third day. So a few pages like the peregrine falcon took a couple weeks. The generous dimensions of the book demanded the images be as detailed as I could make them, so no effort was spared. This was a devotional project, which was different than what I did for Whitman Illuminated, which is largely an interpretive project. So because all of us, young and old alike, owe so much to the Endangered Species Act, it was important to me that A Wild Promise appealed to as wide a readership as possible. That includes kids, especially kids. I've seen young readers enjoy it as a fun, educational picture book. I've had a lot of my friends who are crunchy homeschool moms get it for their kids and use it as an educational tool. A lot of nature centers which specialize in the education of young people about the natural world have also kind of taken it under their wing, so I'm very grateful to that. I've seen adult readers appreciate Terry Tempest Williams' moving essay, the bold imagery, and the book's overall mission as well. Regarding the book's mission, I've been informed by my publisher, Tin House, that copies of A Wild Promise have been placed into the hands of several U.S. senators. Terry Tempest Williams, who wrote the book's introduction, was already a tireless champion of wildlife conservation, but has become a great champion of this book as well. My hope is that A Wild Promise will play a small part in strengthening the case for the continued support of the Endangered Species Act, and to call attention to the plight of many lesser-known threatened and endangered species that deserve our support and advocacy. Before I end, I'd like to paraphrase something that was said a year and a half ago by Sir David Attenborough. This is his words, not mine. 96% of all the mammalian biomass on Earth now consists of humans and our livestock. The remaining 4% is everything else. Foxes, elephants, mice, whales, deer, bats, and all the other wild mammals. 70% of all avian biomass on Earth is now domesticated poultry. Nature once determined how we survive. Now we determine how nature survives. End quote. It's easy to see why people lose hope, but I always remind myself that Mother Nature always bats last. I also remind myself that what really matters is what we do when we're beyond hope. Ultimately, we don't devote our time and energy to our chosen causes because we think our side will win. We do what we do because those things are worth fighting for. So if you find yourself losing hope, look beyond it. That's where you'll find the volunteers. They're all around you, working in their own modest way to make sure that future generations will inherit a world that's still worth caring about. I invite you to join them, to be fortified by their cheerful resolve. You'll get dirty, you'll have calluses and sore knees, but you'll also find a sense of purpose, and you may even find hope. Thanks so much for your time, guys.
Alan, can we let that run
Yeah, absolutely.
a little bit? Does it loop or is it, there's an ending?